Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're able to tune in to this special edition from APA. My name's Dave Sleet. I'm Managing Director of ANA Psychological Accreditation, and today I am delighted to be introducing our latest collaboration partner. In a moment, you'll get to meet David Margot, and he will explain what his business is, what it does, and why psychological awareness is important. But for everybody that's watching, please check out all of the videos that are on the YouTube channel. This is free CPD for you, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a lawyer, whether you are a psychological professional. It's there for you guys. Subscribe to the channel, like the links, and make sure that you are getting the best support from the psychological sector that you can. For now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our new collaboration partner, David Margot. David, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon to you, David. Two Davids.
It's brilliant. It's like a double D show today. I'm really delighted that we're able to pull this together and look at the world widening the world of psychological awareness. But I'm going to leave it to you to introduce yourself, the business, and what you do, and then we'll get into why the collaboration is really exciting. So over to you, sir.
Thanks, David. Okay. Hello, everybody. So I'm David Margot from a service called Divorce Solutions, which is a divorce consultancy. If I may, just to explain what we do, I think it's perhaps relevant just to take you back to my my past, what I've been doing and how I got to this new service. So I spent nearly 40 years as a commercial lawyer, solicitor in the City of London. I was a senior partner in a city law practice with 100 partners, 500 people. As I say, spent nearly 40 years doing that. And in 2007, I decided to leave the profession. I had a few ideas about what I might do. Nothing was fixed. And I got talking to somebody who said to me that they'd split up from their husband. And their very words were, they said they needed to do something about their divorce, but they didn't know where to start. And I'm afraid I didn't help them because I knew nothing at all about the divorce world. But it did make me look into things. I thought there was a need for people to have some guidance through their divorce. So I started looking into the divorce process. And I was quite surprised at what I discovered, which led me to set up the divorce consultancy. Before I tell you what I discovered, I would just like to paint David Margot's view of the legal divorce industry, which has served many people over many years, sometimes doing a great job, sometimes perhaps not. Always, I think, very expensive. And that's one of the problems that people face. So if I could just tell you some facts about the legal divorce world, as I see it, other people may see it differently. The first thing to say is that actually the number of divorces have been going down over the last 3 or 4 years. They have started to pick up again because of COVID and all the implications of perhaps of people being stuck together and the tensions that may cause. But generally, there are up to 30%, 30% less divorces than there were 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
Which of course, yeah, it's big numbers, David. And that translates into up to 30% less work for all the thousands and thousands of divorce lawyers that are around. That's the first point. Second point, law is hugely expensive, as we all know. The rates for a partner in a family law firm in and around London. I mean, you can get cheaper assistants, but partners in a family law firm tend to range in price, perhaps at the lower level, £275 an hour, which might well be high street, up to £700 an hour for the top guys in the city, all plus VAT. So it's incredibly expensive process to get
It's
involved
almost
in.
extortionate.
It's one of the most expensive professions in the world. And people are surprised when I tell them that not only do lawyers have an hourly charge out rate for the work that they do, all according to a level of experience, but that lawyers also have targets, billings targets that they are encouraged to achieve. So at the end of the year, when perhaps you haven't met your annual billings target, there could be some criticism, there could be some implications of that as regards your salary increase that you would otherwise expect, your promotion, your Christmas bonus. So this confirms perhaps something that people have suspected over the years, that the law firm's interest is very different to the client's interest. The longer the case goes on, the law firm benefits from it. The longer the case goes on, the client suffers in their pocket and also emotionally. So I was very interested in seeing if there were alternative ways of getting people through their divorce in a way that perhaps would lower the temperature, which would be less costly or less distressing. The other thing I wanted to point out is that lawyers take 5 years to qualify. That's 3 years at university learning the law, 2 years working in a solicitor's office on a sort of apprenticeship. And the apprenticeship is designed to help that training lawyer understand how to put the law they've learned at university into practice. And so far as divorce is concerned, what they tend to be taught is that you do the same thing that lawyers have been doing for many years, which is you issue court proceedings and you take this divorcing person through the court process, which is the longest, the most confrontational, and a hugely expensive process to be involved in. Of course, with all the uncertainties of the outcome. So that's the background to most people's experience when they come to divorce, because most people tend to think to themselves, oh my goodness, I better go and see a solicitor. And that, for the reasons that I mentioned, is likely to be the outcome of you going through the court process. So what did I discover?
And in all of that, there is very little awareness of the psychological impacts on either party in those proceedings.
Absolutely. Very unusual for solicitors to be trained in any psychological processes. I mean, yes, one would hope that they would be sympathetic and understanding of the client's circumstances, and it is the most awful time of one's life. But let's face it, solicitors are not trained to deal with that emotional stuff. Other people are. So, and could I just mention that it is hugely expensive to use your solicitor as a therapist. People often can't resist but to moan on and on to their solicitor about how awful their other half is. But the truth of the matter is that really doesn't have any bearing on the financial settlement. And all it does by moaning to the solicitor is allowing the solicitor to add time at solicitor rates onto their timesheet. And if you're paying a solicitor £350 an hour plus VAT, £420 an hour, it's a very expensive moan you're having when you could go and see a therapist or somebody who's trained to help you at perhaps a quarter or less than that hourly rate.
And this is where, you know, I'm really excited that we're able to work in this collaboration, because while the consultancy that you offer allows for that awareness of alternative routes to court, and it, when we were discussing earlier in the build up to this, there is not just one avenue for divorce, is there?
No, that's the whole thing that I discovered. I mean, as I think I might have said, I had no experience of the divorce world, and when I looked into it, I was surprised at what I discovered. That there are, so to settle your financial dispute, there are as many as at least seven different processes you could choose from. 7. It's quite extraordinary. So obviously going through the court process is one of them. Mediation that everybody's heard about is another one. But there are other processes that most people are not told about, have no knowledge of. For example, there's something called collaborative law. There's something called direct access. There's something called arbitration, and so on. So as a divorce consultancy, we're looking at the person's story and trying to match them up with the best process for them in their particular circumstances. And even when you are faced with going to court, there are cheaper ways of processing your situation other than to have a solicitor and a barrister, which is the standard process that solicitors have been encouraging for many decades.
Yeah, and the reasons behind divorce are more often than not a growth disparity between two parties, and that can be an emotional growth, it can be psychological growth, but it can also be a financial growth on one side of that partnership. Do you think that the world of the law, as as steadfast as it has been, as you say, the process is we need to bill clients for as long as possible until, if we get more clients coming in, great, we can let some go. We've got to keep the billing hours up. Do you think that has an adverse effect on the professional lawyer as well as on the parties involved?
Well, I think there is a temptation to perhaps make the most of a case, to spend time on it that perhaps doesn't need to be spent on it, that there are better, quicker, cheaper ways of dealing with things. Because don't forget, lawyers charge for every phone call that's made, every letter that's written. We're great believers in, wherever possible, roundtable meetings, for example. Very rare in the legal world, in the divorce world, for somebody to say, oh, I had a meeting with my solicitor the other day and we sat in the same room as my spouse and their solicitor and we had this discussion. I mean, that's a kind of a rare situation. Lawyers tend to write a letter, they get a response, they take their client's instructions on it, they write another letter back to the other side responding. This is all a very lengthy, expensive process. Now, I'm not silly enough to think that if you sat a divorcing couple and their lawyers in a room together, you're going to agree everything. You're not. But if you can narrow the issues to 2, 3, 4 points, whatever it may be, you could then mediate those 4 points, 3 or 4 points. You could arbitrate those 3 or 4 points. You can mix and match these processes. And I think the answer to trying to get people through divorce in the best way for them is to be as creative as you can. So to make use of whatever's available.
And this is one of the reasons why I'm really excited, because we know that within the therapeutic arena, the relationships pre-qualifying change after qualifying, and those relationships, as there is that emotional and psychological growth, put huge strain on marriages and relationship and long-term relationships in a way that is very, very difficult to kind of qualify in the traditional legal senses of what's caused the breakdown. We've heard lots recently legally about changes in the way divorces can be processed, and the idea of a no-blame divorce has been talked about for as long as I can remember. Is that something that is currently in play? Do you have to have a tangible reason for a divorce, or can no blame be used?
You still have to have a reason, which is basically adultery, which is often difficult to prove unless the other party is prepared to admit it, or unreasonable behaviour. There are other grounds, but those are the normal ones. So yes, you still normally have to allege some unreasonable behaviour against the other party. And so far as no fault divorce is concerned, there was an announcement, I think only this week, whereby the government, who were hoping to bring it in later this year, have delayed it yet again till next year. So as it is at the moment, you still have to come up with a reason to qualify to be allowed to divorce.
Yeah.
Because getting married is a contract, and you've got to find a reason to break that contract.
Yeah, and this is the challenge that ultimately drives the emotional and psychological conflict in the individual that wants to exit from that contract, but it also puts the added burden into the wider situation. If you've got, if that's now a family rather than just two people, you've got children involved, you've got the legal ramifications for their care, etc. The consultation process that you offer, is that the same as what a solicitor would offer in order to secure the divorce?
Right, okay. So perhaps I should explain, probably roughly half our clients come to us at the beginning of the divorce process, and they want to know how best to go about it, and we would consider which of these 7 processes would be best in their particular circumstances. The other half of our clients come to us when they're already in the divorce process. So invariably they have a solicitor, they've got a barrister, they've been going hammer and tongs at the other side for months, in some cases years. And what brings us to consult us at that point is often the costs. They're getting very worried about the way the costs are racking up. And of course, in a divorce situation, people can't tell you when your case is going to come to an end. So it's very much an open checkbook on the costs of it, which becomes very frightening. The other reason is they've often lost a bit of confidence in the lawyer who they thought was good at the beginning, but now they're beginning to wonder. So we would review their case. Interestingly, David, very unusual in the law to get a second opinion. In the medical world, people accept that you get second opinions, you get third opinions in certain situations. In the legal world, very, very, very rare to get second opinions. So, and this is such an important time of your life, and you've got one chance of getting it right. So, but I've gone a little bit around the houses in answering your question. Our approach is that if we can, bear in mind we're not doctors, but if we identify that there is something going on with a client, perhaps that there's an addiction that they're suffering from and that's affecting their marriage, if there's some other behaviour that needs addressing, or even if they need couples counselling, whatever it may be, if we can spot something, we are only too pleased to try and help and refer them to somebody who is trained to help them. And that's where obviously David and his team comes in. And we were very impressed that David was setting up some register of members with a qualification and testing system, so that the people that clients might be referred to are of a certain standard. Because the world of therapists and therapy is a real mystery to the public. There are so many different people with so many different qualifications. It's very difficult to assess who's who.
Yeah, and this is where, you know, when we've had the conversations in preparation for the collaboration, we've been very mindful that there are lawyers, there are solicitors, there are barristers, there are even QCs out there who are very psychologically aware, but they are not supported in that psychological awareness by the sector unless somebody comes to them and gives them that support directly. But also that because the way the law is written, the way law firms have been able to operate for hundreds of years, this isn't recent. The emotional and psychological impacts of due process aren't actually supporting the mental health and well-being of the practitioner, of that legal practitioner, any more than they are supporting the party that they're there to serve. And this is why the psychologically alert membership category is open to those professionals, because they're able to come into that support arena. They're able to have that that connection to the psychological world in a way that's never been promoted to them before. But also, as you say, when you've got a client who's at the beginning of, you know, I need a divorce, I need out of this, there's this, there's this, there's this. Just having that awareness to say, actually, before you make a final decision on this, you might want to look at these options. And having therapeutic support as one of those options can often turn around somebody's perception of a relationship, somebody's interaction with their partner. And that can open up huge savings because you're actually able to reconnect with that individual that you've loved, that you've been with for however long. And that, to me, absolutely, is the essence of good psychological interaction.
Yeah, David, I agree really with everything that you said there. If clients can be supported in a better way, which enables them to be in a better place so that they can make informed decisions in a rational way, not in an emotional way, I think that's great. And if their support system, their legal system, whoever they're using for that, is equally trained to support that as well, I think that is a huge benefit. When I was in practice, and as I said, it was in the commercial world, I was aware of people who were self-harming, and that was in the commercial world. Now, in the divorce world, in the family law world, where solicitors and assistants are dealing with people's, real personal problems, that solicitor, that assistant may also associate with from their own personal experience. That can trigger all sorts of things in them. And it has to be said that there's very little room, there's been very little room over the last 10 years or so for people in law firms who are struggling because they've been triggered by something that a client has told them. There's very little place for them to go. It's a sign of weakness to go to the partner in charge and say, oh, I can't cope with this. So you can't do that. So I'm very impressed when David was saying that they plan to, approach professional practices and try and educate the staff and train the staff in dealing with these sort of issues.
Yeah, and Siobhan and myself and the team at APA have been so kind of driven to widen that psychological awareness across the board, that by making psychological awareness available to those legal practitioners or at all levels. The Lord Chief Justice, you're more than welcome to sign up. Is it still Master of the Rolls for the Family Court? By all means, Lord Chancellor, come off of your wall sack once in a while and get some emotional and psychological back in. We want the world to understand that the emotional impacts of one person, when they share that with another, they will have an impact on that second person. It's why it's called secondary trauma. And if we're not able to support that professional that's receiving that information, then ultimately they will then bleed that into their own relationships and into their own professional interactions. And we know what that domino effect can be like, and we also know how many professionals identify that that's happening, and because they don't feel that they've got an avenue to go down to get support, they cope in negative ways.
Absolutely. David, what else? Yeah, go on.
One of the things that I think having a collaboration with the law arena in all of its connotations, it's not just in divorce, but divorce and family law is where the emotion is always going to be at its rawest. Did I just invent a word? At its most raw. Speak properly, young man. The point of having that collaboration isn't just for the client of that law firm, but it is also opening up that mental health support for those practitioners in a way that hasn't been done. What would you like to see in the world of family law, and in particular the divorce protocols, moving forward with that psychological element in play?
Well, I mean, I think as we've already said, people trained, I don't expect lawyers to be therapists, but I think they need to be aware of what the client is going through emotionally. I mean, yes, they can look at the client and they can see they're distressed, but I think they need to understand a bit more about the cause of that and what is available to refer the client on to somebody who is trained to be able to help them. I mean, the divorce world has changed enormously over the last 15 years. I've said that there's, all these different processes that are available, but there are lots of other things that can be done. People are not aware of that. So I think there is a general attempt to improve the awful situation that most people have had to face in getting divorced, and training individuals who are dealing with the legal aspects is just one more thing in that whole process to make getting divorced, which almost half the people who get married do get divorced. I mean, this is hugely important, and the impact on children, on families, extended families, and of course then on society generally, when you have step parents, step grandparents, the implications. And
it's like a stone in a pond, isn't it? It just ripples out, and those ripples just get bigger and bigger and bigger as a situation goes on.
I mean, when you think about it, David, the number of hours that are lost by people who are at work who can't concentrate on their work because they're going through a divorce, or they absent themselves from work, or you know, the implications are huge as regards sort of mental health, as regards even hospitalizations, and housing. Just think, when a couple split up, that couple who lived in one home now need two homes. There is already pressure on housing accommodation. If we have 100,000, and that's what the figures show, there or thereabouts, 100,000 divorces a year, that presumably equates to another 100,000 homes that are required. I mean, the figures are just enormous. Anything that we can do to stop divorce happening, to help people communicate, to help people deal with their darkest secrets, and that can keep them in a happy family environment, yeah, absolutely, I'm all for it.
And the thing that I see is that when therapeutic support is engaged, invariably, even if the worst scenario plays out and there is a separation, there is a divorce, with therapeutic support in play, it doesn't have to be a nightmare scenario for extended periods of time. It can be worked in such a way that with the right legal processes, the right therapeutic support, the right emotional support, all of those things become the team around that individual, then you don't have to have the secondary and tertiary trauma that goes after the divorce, because you can work all of those things through. And I think it's truly inspired that for you and for your team to be moving towards having this kind of collaboration, this engagement, and looking at having professionals that are recognized, celebrated, and accredited for their psychological awareness. So I want to applaud you. I want to applaud the team for bringing that to the fore and being the first to look at this as a service benefit to your clients. And moving forward, I think this is a phenomenal opportunity for therapeutic professionals that are already working in this arena without ever being recognized for it.
Well, thank you, David, and I hope we can have a long and interesting collaboration together and help many, many people.
And I totally agree. I know Siobhan wanted to be with us today. She is with clients and sends her regards and apologizes for not being with us. Before we go,
no apology.
Well, I'm sure she'd appreciate that. Before we go, what would you like to say to anybody that is at the cusp of making those decisions around, do I go for a divorce? Do I carry on seeing, where things lie? What would your message be to those people?
I think regret is the biggest thing. You don't want to leave a situation feeling guilty. I think you need to explore every opportunity, give your marriage its best shot, and enlist whatever help may be required. And therapeutic help, I'm a great believer in it. I've also had my own personal situations where I've relied on therapy, which I found fantastic. And that has actually inspired me in this service that we provide to encourage people to seek that sort of help wherever possible. So seek help for your emotional stuff, seek help for your legal stuff, and make sure that you consider all the opportunities, all the options that are there in processing your divorce, because knowledge, as we know, is the great thing. And if you know what's available, then you can make an informed decision as to which route you're going to take when it comes to your situation.
Yeah, and being informed and being aware and being supported are three of the most vital components in this scenario for anybody. David, thank you so much. For anybody, for anybody who is interested in David's work, check out the links in the description on the video, and on the APA website you will be able to get links as well. At the bottom of the homepage with all of our collaborators, you'll have links to those websites as well. For now, I want to say a massive thank you, and for everyone out there, take care, and hopefully we'll see you again in another one of our conversations very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.